Hello and welcome back to my painting channel, and if this is the first time, very warm welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back my friends. And in this video we are going to paint the much awaited and eagerly anticipated Shelob model. Alright, she is an absolute beast. She is a amazing model from Games Workshop. She's a metal model, so she is really heavy as well, so you'll have to bear with me moving this around on the camera. But she is an amazing model, and it's going to be a real good miniature to paint. Now for this I've painted her in a form of a northern black widow spider, so stick with me and we'll go through it and we'll make this nice and simple and easy. So I'm starting off by painting all of the claws, all of the very tips of her feet, so little pincers, and the eyeballs in a ghost grey from Vallejo. And once we've done all of the hardest to reach places, then we're going to go straight into painting the main colour of the body. And for this I'm using a German grey from Vallejo. And the reason why I'm using a German grey is because I didn't want to paint her just flat black and possibly lose a little bit of colour or lose a little bit of detail or lose a little bit of texture or anything like that. I wanted to try to paint her a little bit lighter so that she doesn't just blend in as black, but she looks a little bit more sort of fearsome. So German grey all over the body, apart from the bits that we've painted with the ghost grey, so just the tips, claws and the eyes. And then for a little mouth just on the front, I'm just popping in here a Vallejo red. Now just be careful not to paint, well, you can paint the front however you like. I'm only painting the very small mouth using this colour. Now I have seen a lot of people paint a little bit around and underneath and all up to the face and things like that. You can do, that's completely your choice. Me personally, I'm only painting the mouth at the moment. Now as I said at the beginning, painting this like a northern black widow, I really had to think about that for a second then, sorry. Painting this like a northern black widow spider, they normally have some really cool red markings and colours on the back, and that's the reason why I chose to do this. She's such a big model, it would be a shame if I painted her just in black or just in grey. So what I'm trying to do is, as you see, I'm just painting a little bit more colour and texture to her so that it makes her stand out a lot more. And by doing this then, when she's on the table or when she's on the shelf or anything like that, when you've got your model painted and it's set, you can look at that and it's really going to pop, it's really going to stand out, it's going to make her look absolutely unique and amazing. So that's the reasoning for this. And I'm doing this just across the back area here. And as you see, I've got the two main smaller blobs of colour, and then I've just painted an elongated version of the same sort of shape across the back. I've also painted using the ghost grey, a few of the little teeth in there, and following up just the back of her body, I've put two smaller parts of red, as you can see. For this, I'm going to show you how I did the base as well. You're more than welcome to follow along, but you don't have to. So just to give you a quick idea, the cork, so the base has been made out of adhesive cork, which is the same sort of effect that I've used making the video that I did about making tarmac. And for this I'm painting in a heavy charcoal, so this allows it to be a dark grey but a different colour grey to Shelob herself, so that she doesn't blend directly into the background. There'd be nothing worse than painting the whole thing in the same colour and you losing her onto the back. Same way, I've glued down a really big stone here on the base. So I'm just painting this one in a stonewall grey, and I'm going to paint a couple of the smaller ones in the same colour. And again, this is just about taking your eye away from looking at all of that grey. It's just about giving you something a little bit lighter to look at, so that you're not just focused on everything that's really dark and dreary and things like that. And once we're done there, I'm covering the whole model and the base, because I've done the base as well, in a Citadel Null Nile wash. Now you can use any black wash you like. I've used Citadel for this because I find the Null Nile to be quite watery, it runs quite well, so this gives me a lot more manipulation on a big model, which is great because that means I can move this around quite a lot across those creased areas. And as you see, I'm just putting this everywhere, including in the mouth, on the claws, on the little mandibles, just covering the whole model in this. I'm also going to do the same on the base, as I say, just to tie everything together a little bit, and then we'll build those colours up as we go. So don't need to be too precise or precious with this bit. You can just build it up as you go. So for the base then, I'm using a Vallejo Blue Grey Pale. This is a really cool little sort of colour, because this is a grey colour but it has a little bit of blue to it, so it just lightens it up a little bit and gives it a bit more character, or a little bit more sort of texture to it. And this is great for doing things like your base, because then the base is going to stand out from Shelob herself. She's going to be a different colour, and that way then it means that she becomes then the focus point. Same, I'm just using a highlighted colour of sky grey across the big rock that I had glued onto the base. Just going to try to be a little bit careful here not to get the dry brushing onto her legs, as I just got a little bit on her leg there. And that's about it for the base for the moment. So, moving on to the body itself. Now this is the difficult part, so I wanted to try to give a little bit of two ways in which you can paint this model. Now the body itself is really good because you've got a lot of textures, a lot of folds around the back end here and on the underneath. So what I'm using is, I'm using a very small brush. I'm using like a number 1 brush, a number 0 brush, and I'm just painting that German grey back on, following those lines so that it creates that element of depth. So by leaving the black shade in the creases, that allows it to give it a bit more depth between the lighter colour on top. So I'm hand painting the body work and the back this way, and I'm kind of following the body, but I'm trying to leave where, as you can see, there's certain areas and certain stages and patches where the black has sort of sat the most. So I'm trying to avoid painting over that, and I'm just going to paint this in patches then where I think it would be lighter. Like so. And what we're going to do, see, we're going to paint the body itself like this, and we're going to paint the body by hand, so that then that makes it look a little bit more authentic, and like you've got a little bit more control over it, because you can control where the paint is going. But for the legs themselves, we're actually going to dry brush the legs, because the legs are quite big. We don't need really loads of control over those legs, so we're just going to make sure that all of the control is focused on the body. And as you can see, just doing the same thing here, catching just those raised bits across her back. And with the German grey, this has got quite a light, quite an almost very, very faint blue tone to it. So it's a dark grey with a very faint blue tone, which again creates a little bit more character on your model, because it's not just looking like a flat black colour. You can paint your model just black if you like, if you'd prefer. But myself, I tend to find that if you paint something just flat black, you lose a little bit of character, or you can lose a little bit of depth to it. So as you can see there where I'm just painting across the back again. You see where those folds are just across the back of the body there. So we're just going to try to paint along and follow those along in a uniform pattern, so that that creates those folds, creates those creases, and creates that highlight and that painting as we go through. So as I said, once we've done the body and we've painted that body back in by hand, we're just going to dry brush the legs and the mandibles, so just up across the top. So I'm just using this across the top of the legs and just across the bottom of the legs as well, as she's rearing up in sort of action, like she's just screaming and shouting at Sam, and you know, she's rearing up. So we're just going to paint this and dry brush this across, as you see, the top half and the underneath as well, like so. So just to use a little bit more of a slight highlight then across those legs. So whereas we've used the dry brush to go across the top and the underneath of those legs, we're also going to use a very, very faint highlight. So we're using that German grey, and as you can see, I'm just using a very small blob of dead white from Vallejo in this. You can use any white you like. I use dead white because it's a slightly off-white. And so what this will do is this will make that German grey just slightly brighter, without making it too extreme. Because the idea is, although we're using it as a highlight, we don't want this highlight to be overpowering or overbearing or anything like that. We don't want that to offset the base colour, see? So I'm just going to dry brush this across the underneath and across the legs and mandibles again, like I was saying with the normal German grey. And this then should give us a little bit more of like a sort of a slight highlight without it being too extreme. This is going to be a subtle highlight. And you can push that a couple of times. So you can do this highlight 2 or 3 times until you're happy with how high or how low that highlighting is. The danger you see is if you put too much white in it and then you go to an extreme highlight right at the beginning, what you can do is you can kind of overdo the highlight and then end up with an area where the darker undertone is offset too much by the highlight. So we're just doing it in subtle stages. Now from there, I'm just painting the back again, so I'm just going back to that red. Now the red, I've thinned, obviously all of the paints are thin, so I've thinned this one just a little bit more, just to make sure that I'm not overdoing that colour. And I'm following this, but in very, very small, rough, sort of scratchy sort of brush strokes this time, because I don't want this to be just one flat colour now. I want some of that black and some of that grey and some of the darker tones underneath to show through. So what I'm doing is just kind of putting a little bit more texture to it, so my brush strokes now are becoming sort of an element of that random pattern that you'd kind of get out of nature, because nature isn't exactly perfect, nothing is exact. So what I'm trying to do is just leave some patches of the darker red to show through, and some patches where the shade is to show through as well, so that it creates that more like dynamic sort of depth to the colour as well, because you don't want the red to just go on as one big splodge and then you lose out on all of that sort of hard work that you've done with the shade and things like that. So as you can see, I'm just on the back here, just catching the little sort of raised areas there as well, like so. You want to do the same thing just in the mouth as well, so you just want to cut across and around those teeth that we painted. So you just want to kind of just get around that area. Now this is a little bit tough, this is quite a fiddly little part of the miniature, so take your time with this. Really pay this little bit a good bit of attention. Don't use too much paint on your brush, because then it will just fall inside into where the shade is, and we don't want that to happen. You just want to you just want to paint this just around the very edges, so just around the areas where you can see that little bit of the red. And once we've done with that red, we're also going to boost that red to be really, really, really vibrant, because the cool thing about a Black Widow spider is the red parts on it really, really, really do stick out. So when you notice a Black Widow, it's that red stands out on that dark colour. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to push that vibrance. So we've used the red as the base tone. Now we're just going to build that up into a brighter red again by using a Vallejo Bloody Red. This is a great colour to put on top of the normal base red, because this stands out loads. The vibrancy that you get out of this colour is fantastic. This is a really, really good colour. If you're looking for sort of a Citadel alternative, I'd suggest something like Wild Rider Red is also very, very, very good for this sort of colour, because you're going to get that vibrance, and it's more like sort of an orangey vibrance rather than like a bluey vibrance, if that makes sense. So you get a lot more colour and a lot more sort of tone out of this as well. So yeah, just using that bloody red and just using some of those random sort of scratchy sort of brush strokes. So just using the brush to kind of leave certain patterns and leave certain sort of brush strokes, so that it creates the depth out of the darker colour underneath. And like we did with the previous colour as well, we're just going to make sure that we just get that vibrance as well around that mouth, so that it makes her look all the more horrific as well, because as we see the mouth and the front area of the miniature, we really want to be horrified by the fact that she's trying to eat Frodo, you know. We want her to really sort of look like a really horrible, horrific creature. So once we've done that as well, we're just going to move back to the Ghost Grey, and we're just going to build that colour up on those little feet, on those little sort of pincers that we've got on the edge of the feet, and across the claws and the sort of teeth on the end of the mandibles and things like that. We're just going to brighten those back up using the original colour, the Ghost Grey. And you can push that again as well by putting like an extreme sort of edge highlight of white on top of that if you want, or something. Maybe the dead white that I said earlier, because dead white on top of Ghost Grey is a fantastic combination as well. And there we go. So what I'm just going to do here, I'm just going to put a little bit of typhus corrosion across the base. This is purely optional. This is just to build a little bit more of a dirty, muddy effect as well around the base, just to kind of offset some more of that grey. If you're wondering how I've done the web, the reason why I haven't done a video on the web included in Shelob is because the webbing effect I've already covered in my video about Frodo caught in Shelob's web. So if you're really interested in how I've done the web here, I'll put a link in the description below to the Frodo video as well, to show you sort of how I've made the spider web. It's a really fun technique, it's easy to do, and it looks incredible, as I'm sure you agree by the way that she looks here. And for the final step, the final stage, because we haven't painted her directly black, this now allows us to put a small bit of black just in between the little sort of creases in her legs. So the little areas in between her legs where you might find a little bit of a different colour or a lighter colour, I'm actually going to paint those black, so that then it means that the colour of her legs and her body and things stand out, meaning that she's sort of like a darker colour underneath. And once you're done, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. This is sort of how we've got there. You know, it's quite simple, it's quite easy, it's a cool looking miniature, it's got some really cool simple effects to follow. By painting her a little bit grey then, like I say, you don't lose any of the detail. She actually looks a little bit more frightening. That red really pops on that grey as well. And how horrific is it when she turns and faces you with that little mouth, you know? So yeah, hopefully guys, hopefully you've taken something from this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed painting this miniature. This has got to be one of my favourite ones. So as always, thank you so much for watching.